So I'm going live on Facebook also, in case you're wondering what I'm doing here. Oh, my beard is gone. There were some mistakes yesterday. And now live on Facebook. Also, now I wait for people to watch. If anyone's going to watch live, who knows? Like Instagram. I said I've done a couple of these live on Instagram, where I've been live on Facebook and also live on Instagram. And it turns out that I never have been live on Instagram. I see right now that I am live on Instagram and also on Facebook. So good for me, right? Um, what's the purpose of doing these? Strain on Society is the channel. And besides being its own podcast and things where I review strains of cannabis and speak with different people about cannabis related things, there's also many other segments that I do, like Mental Health Monday, because it's important to me. Because I have mental illness and I share them openly. My intent is to get rid of the stigma, or at least to let people that know that have mental illnesses, they're not alone. Fuck the stigma. If people have judgments on it, that's their issue. It's got nothing to do with me. It's got nothing to do with you. Just, on Facebook Live. I'm also on Instagram Live, so I'm going to be looking back and forth. Hope that's not too much of a pain in the ass. But it's the first time I've got out to work, so let's give a round of applause to Mr. Hendricks for finally being going on Instagram Live as at the same time as Facebook Live. Moving my camera around on Facebook didn't make a goddamn difference. Anyway, what does that got to do with anything? And an issue that comes up when you're an entrepreneur. So I'm an entrepreneur. I know a lot of my friends are. Or even with a corporate brand, it's kind of besides going into logos and all that, the brand is, what do people think of you? What are you all about? What are your values? That's branding to me. And also because I have a mental illness, I have CPTSD, which is chronic PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. I also have an anxiety disorder, and I have general depressive disorder, and I'm quite open about my challenges. And I've only become open in the last couple of years about it. It's something I've been battling. I'm 48 years old. I know I look really young and baby faced, except for those giant bags underneath my eyes. But it's something that I have been vocal about and been open about. But it's not just because of mental illness or I was diagnosed with that. I've always been very open, and I've always been very I've always lacked a filter. So, and throughout my life growing up, that was always what my parents and people would tell me was my biggest flaw, was not having that filter. Um, and I still don't have one most of the time. And for me, the reason why so many people like me, adore me, follow, and all that stuff around the world, because I don't have a filter, and because I'm very honest and raw, particularly when I talk about myself. Because why should I be embarrassed or ashamed? Why should I be embarrassed or ashamed about having a mental illness in this case? But this isn't. I mean, I've always been like that. My friends, I think they still do, used to throw on fetish balls in Cleveland, huge fetish balls. If you don't know what that is, Google. And we had moved to New York, Diane and I. This was 20 years ago, and we were at. She was working to get her degree in American Sign Language interpreting. She was working at a factory for a while, this company, and working in the office. And when they had their Christmas dinner, or holiday dinner for all the employees, and I was there, and there were people there we were sitting at a table with at this nice country club, and they were asking what we had done the previous weekend. And I said, we went back to Cleveland for a fetish ball, and I felt kicks under the table, and that was from Diane. Because I would just say it. I don't think in a terms of what are people going to think about me or my brand. I legit just thought that's what we did this weekend. I didn't think that there would be any embarrassment or that Diane wouldn't want her coworkers to know that she was going to fetish balls in Cleveland, which all makes fucking sense. You know what I mean? But Excuse me. I wouldn't cough. Okay. Just taking my medication to deal with this anxiety. Um, and branding has been one of those topics that has given me anxiety. And as I've been mentioning, I don't have a filter. I lack one. It's been my biggest asset throughout my entire life. It also has cost me, has been my biggest cost. It's been my biggest Achilles heel, has turned away donors, investors, participants, people that want to partner. And that's the cost of it. But when people think about branding, I mean, do they really think about, because you're a brand. Like, whatever you post on social media, you're telling a story about who you are, about your value system, about your belief system, about your joy systems, about all of those things. And I know that I'm doing it too. We're branding, whether you know it or not, whether it's even intentional or not. And I get asked it a lot because I have a background in propaganda and persuasion and political comm. And yeah, I do know the posts that I post. I know in what order I like to post things, because I do like to I like to keep things balanced. And then at times it's just completely you know off the cuff posting when it's real raw and emotional. Often it's that, because if I thought it through, I wouldn't do that and share. I mean, I want to do that, but there are fears associated with it, even with having a brand, professional entrepreneur, personal brand of being authentic and vulnerable. I like to post when those things are raw, because then they come off as raw and vulnerable. And that's what I want. I want more vulnerability in our world, and I want more authenticity. And if I want more of those things, then I have to be more authentic, and I have to be more vulnerable. And that's just my belief system. The world's going to be a reflection of what I'm doing. So that can be challenging. Running from a pit bull rescue standpoint of having Bully Ranch, that vulnerability, that authenticity, and that standing with our belief systems has cost us donors. This summer, during the civil unrest and all that, we posted Black Lives Matters and even did videos and participated, and that cost us donors. That cost we are, and there are more donors out there. I didn't start this off. I kind of write out outlines of how I'm going to do these and what the topics are going to be in the flow of it, and then I rarely follow here. I see you, John. Yeah, man. It's weird that vulnerability and authenticity is seen as a weakness. Because, in my opinion, someone coming from a political communication background, as a political writer, propagandist, and I like politicians. I like any leaders that I have. The ones that I will follow are the ones that'll show their flaws. The ones that will be honest, they'll be vulnerable, that'll be authentic and admit and take responsibility for everything in their life. And that's who talks and speaks to my soul. And maybe that's just because those are my values of being that way. But I think about this, like when we had first moved to Austin, Diane and I, we were looking for a house and all this stuff, and then it ended up taking forever because we had pit bulls. So we moved into this apartment. It was the last of the apartments that we wanted, but it allowed pit bulls. This particular property manager, and so we took it. It wasn't our favorite apartment by any stretch of the imagination, but we didn't care about that. And when I first moved here, I was helping my friend Dak with his class. It was his first one for his business, this leadership classes that he does called The New Game. And this was the first class. And he was living in California. We know each other from Hawaii. I just moved to Texas. And we were doing it for a class in St. Louis. Go figure. And after that first class was done, the third weekend of each of those classes, there's 3 months long, and every month of those there's a weekend long class you have to attend. And in particular, the last month, it's about a week long. It's a leadership class, and you have to leave your comfort zone. So in this case, the students from St. Louis left, and they came down to Austin. And before we all got with them, all their coaches, everyone that had previously played this game, they came down to Austin too. And we had a meeting before the whole week, about 6 days, started off at my apartment that me and my wife had moved into because it accepted pit bulls and all this stuff. And one of the coaches mentioned off the cuff to me, but there was definitely judgment in it. And I hadn't even thought about it. She's like, "What do you say to people that you're a best-selling author and all this stuff, and you live in this apartment in Austin, Texas?" And I had never even considered that because I don't care. And as I thought about it, it was a little dig. And at the same time, I've heard people say that from places that you know this particular person rented a house with a full yard and all this in St. Louis, and I still paid more rent for my apartment. And I don't think people that have ever left their cities where they grew up, oftentimes they don't recognize the economy of big cities or different places are different. Cost of living is different, everything like that. So it was funny to me, but at the same time, I thought about it. You know what? Should I care? Because is that my brand? Um, you know, I didn't care. Our goal at the time was to find a place. Awesome, Brandon. Find a place that was a lot of pit bulls, and we were kind of in a hurry about it. So weren't concerned with what people would think and what they expect. And I don't even know if I would consider that part of my brand. But just that thought of people are judging me on living in an apartment, or people judging me. Yeah, yeah. People are judging you and me on every fucking thing. Um, and I thought about it before, but I never really nobody had ever posed a question like that to me. What do you say to people that follow you, buy your books, buy all this stuff, and if they knew that you lived in an apartment? It was weird, and it was just something I hadn't considered. But questions like that have come up all the time, often at least. And I think about what is my brand, what is my goal, and I've recognized throughout my life, you know, when I've had great success, I get the biggest cheerleaders, and when I've had really big challenges and struggles, some of those biggest cheerleaders are also the ones that are trying to put the nail in my coffin. And I think it's because when there are challenges and struggles, it gives everybody that hasn't gone for their goals or their dreams an excuse. See, that's why I didn't do it, because look at this guy struggling. Look at this guy having challenges. Look at this guy doing this. See what he's put himself in this place. And if I just keep things mediocre like this, then I don't have to have any of those risks that might take me down here. But then again, they don't also get to have any of those best-selling books, any of those gains, starting a nonprofit. And I'm not saying I'm generalizing here, but that's just what I kind of thought about it. And then I thought about like people, my mother-in-law, for instance, or people who are from in Ohio, where if you didn't go away, you either went to school, or you went to work in a factory, Ford, B.F. Goodrich, Moen, steel mills, all of those things, and traveling around and all the things that I've done, and I've had friends. Only when I get stuck, never when it's a celebration for success. It's only when there's a challenge that'll pop in, and you should work a regular job, 9 to 5, all this stuff. And it's the same thing my father said to me right when the day after I got out of the Army, and he had a BF Goodrich application waiting for me, and I filled it out and didn't sign it, and then a week later he came back, thought I forgot to sign it. We had a whole discussion about I don't want to work at BF Goodrich. I don't want your life. I want my own. And so I look back and people think about, like, people have called me lucky, or people will say, people are often disheartened that I haven't taken the path of working somewhere, like getting that one great job for a career and staying at it as long as possible. And it's funny to me because in my head that sounds like torture. Like I would living that kind of life, staying in Ohio even, and that's not a judgment for anyone else that lives in Northeast Ohio. I couldn't see myself staying in Northeast Ohio. It's fucking cold and snowy, and I just wanted to go out and see other things. And there's a whole thing connected in here. There's a test you can do. Excuse me. That I was looking at earlier. I had got it in college, value lifestyle assignment and test. And growing up as younger, I was just an experiential. I valued experiences more than I valued material possessions. And oftentimes there's things that'll integrate into that, and as I'm still experiential, it's changed into giving, and being wanting to be and being a leader in my community, wanting it. I'm still not like Diane and I lived and traveled so much that we've gotten used to not being owned by our things. Like we've had to get rid of things that are really nice that had sentimental value, and we've never lost sleep over them. Like moving back and forth to Hawaii and doing all these things, we just never lost any sleep over losing sentimental things. But we'd rather make the trip, move to Austin. You know what I mean? Move to Hawaii, move to Washington D.C. and that's our values. And when I look at my life as a success, I think I find myself extremely successful because my goals have never been get a job, buy a house, live in the same community I grew up in, and keep it for as long as I wanted. Not once, never has been. Occasionally, I've been like that. I feel like that would be easier. Now, finding out and understanding why it is that it's because of my mental illnesses. Like I can't go to work from 8 to 5, 9 to 5. Like that's not how my brain operates. When I used to work in a think tank, I remember going in sometimes at 6 a.m. and I'd still have to stay till 5 because that's what everybody did. But I went in there at 6 a.m. because it was quiet, because there was no one there, because it was all open cubicles and loud and fun and I couldn't concentrate, be creative, and I was writing copy, and yet I'd still have to stay there because those were the rules, and it was so dumb to me. Like why? And then sometimes I'd be writing and working late at night, and that's just how my brain operates. So the idea of staying at one place and doing the same thing for so many years, literally, it would crush my will to live. The thought of it crushes my will to live, and that's not a judgment on anyone. That's my judgment on me. That's how my experience is. So for me, it's go back to college and get your college degree and do it quickly, get honors. I did all that. Work in think tanks, make a change, make a choice, make a difference. Moved to Washington, D.C. and do it after 9/11 and did that. Moved to Hawaii and my relationship with Diane and have to start it over and be so committed to it that, between the two of us, when I moved to Hawaii and Diane had moved there, out of the two of us, one of us wasn't as excited as the other. Now, I'm not going to point out or name names, but I'll let you go ahead and guess. Oh, shit, what I do. I'll let you guess who it was. And to stay committed to that and to be able to change, to be able to adapt to my circumstances, recognize that the change was needed in me, and also that there were some things in me that didn't need to change. You know what I mean? Like my vulnerability and authenticity. Those are things that are my biggest strengths and also have the highest costs. Universe, God, goddess, whoever the fuck you want to call it, has a really dark sense of humor. I don't know if that's true. I have a dark sense of humor, and maybe it's just matching that dark sense of humor. I don't know. But what I do know is that just hasn't worked for me since the last time. I worked at a nonprofit in Hawaii, and it was my last managerial job in an office. I don't know that I could ever do it again. I wouldn't do it again, and it's hard to explain that to people over the years. We're like, well, you take these risks and blah blah blah. Even my mother-in-law still wants me to be just normal, get a normal job, and then it doesn't matter what I told her. So now I've had to block her from Facebook, block her on email. That was over a decade ago in Hawaii. It's just amazing, and I look back at the timeline, and I've done all the goals. I've done the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to become a writer. The best-selling author was just being a fucking sprinkling, and I didn't. I was just testing a theory of call it out and receive it, and it was working. So when I talk about mental health and depression, and I share a lot about the monster, there are also some parts of depression that make me who I am, that allow me to see you as how I see you. And I see people, Diane says it's a bigger, I expect too much. And I think I see people in a different light. I see people bigger than they see themselves, because I've had a lot of really important people in my life see me bigger than I saw myself. And that allowed me at times to lean on that to get to achieve some of the dreams and goals. And it's not being a best-selling author or being an author or any of those, starting a pit bull rescue. It's what do I have to become? What did I have to become to do those things? That's where the growth is. You get it? Like it's hard to explain, and it also plays right into my mental illnesses because I get to see the strengths. I look at the world like when I talked about last week having the problem with being overstimulated, where I had to take the hoodie I was wearing, cover up my eyes, tighten the cord so no more light could get in. I see bright. Everything is just hyperbolic in my brain because it's so hyper aware. It's so active that I literally have to shut it out sometimes. But on the flip side, because everything has its balance, it's why I get to see the world so oftentimes so beautifully. The colors are so vivid where I can sit by myself and listen to the drips of rain or the ice melting or watch a snail in Hawaii. I remember I wrote a essay about watching a snail just move through my little garden back where we lived in our condo in Waikiki in Hawaii, and have the ability to write and see everything about people, their shoes, their clothes, their attitude, their facial expressions, their body language, and just being hyper aware. It gives me the opportunity to do that, which is why I'm a great writer. And it's why I enjoy writing so much. It's why I enjoy doing this so much. We all have a certain set of skills, and mine is just storytelling, communication, and talking. And it's a skill, and I've been paid a lot of money for it, and sometimes I haven't been because there are also costs to this, to being this way. But it comes with an ability to care. Like I care so fucking much. And that sounds like I'm humble bragging. No, I mean, I used to care so much that it put me in dire straits mentally. And that was because I would fall so far into supporter, even though I'm not even naturally a supporter, that and empathy, that I would take the brunt. I'd care more than other people did. And then I started coaching and realized that I cannot care more than you do, because that just leads to my own suffering. And learning those kind of lessons and understanding that in my own life that I come out and I say, I'm crazy. I'm a fucking wackadoo. I got all these mental illnesses. I have these issues and health problems. And then I'm supposed to be embarrassed about it, or I'm supposed to feel shameful. And yet, if I came out and said I got cancer, y'all would probably start a GoFundMe for me. My friends would. And they're both diseases. So, why? There's a stigma that's not real. It's man-made. It's humankind made, that somehow mental illness is a detriment. But I will tell you, you look at people like Marconi, who discovered the ether in the air, and his friends and family had him put in a mental health psychiatric hospital, or what that would have been considered at the time, because of all this thoughts about ether in the air. Radio waves is what we use so commonly we don't even recognize them as something that was discovered at some point in time, and he was put away. Look at all your greatest thinkers and all that, and they all had a little bit of crazy, and we look back at them admirably now, but at that time, a lot of them were labeled as crazy. Even the wonderful Jesus that a lot of people follow. I mean, he was murdered. So what does this have to do with branding? It's because I'm a brand, and I'm at 48 figuring out a way to put the umbrella under a strain on society. So there's going to be a Bully Ranch, there's going to be the shows, and it's kind of taking everything that I want, everything that's in my values, and putting them on my own network. And this all plays itself out as it's happening, and then I see how it fits my vision. And there's a cost and a benefit. There's a cost and a benefit to being a CEO of a nonprofit, and yet admitting that I have, mental illness. There's that to being an author. I'm a high risk. We've lost donors. I've lost supporters. I've lost, it takes me back to 2009, being in Las Vegas, being at a dinner table. So when I first participated in a book that became a bestseller, and sitting with some really just some of the kings at the time of personal development. And there's no one like me in that field at that time that it was a non-suit wearing, tattooed, misfit and outlaw type. And there were conversations I had with some of the people at that table, and I also had them in my world in Hawaii and all that, that was about not being so transparent and not being so vulnerable, not being so authentic. If I wanted to turn my gifts into a brand, to not talk about drugs, because I said, I still do them. To not talk about a lot of the things that I talked about because it would be bad for business. Fuck no. That's the very reason people often are attracted to me is because of I'm authentic and vulnerable, and you would want me to turn that off to get more followers with being a little more milquetoast, which was the exact opposite reason of why they wanted me. So they really wanted me as a brand, as how I looked, and yet their messages shown through me a little harsher, reaching a different audience that's not picking up their books, but would pick up with somebody like mine. Except they still want it to be, pop punk versus hardcore. You see what I'm saying? And that doesn't work for me. That's not how I am, and it's not how I want to be. That would be like betraying myself. And I'm saying all this because it comes up so often. Where I look at some of those people are still in my Facebook ads. I still get their emails all the time, and I really looked at people that I follow. Who do I follow from a leadership sense? And I look at those that are extremely successful, and they're friends of mine. And the reason why I have so much love and trust and faith is because they're friends of mine. Because I know the dents in their armor, and it's not just that I know them. If you follow them, you know them. They share them. Jennifer Kem is a perfect example. Femfluence. Check that hashtag out. And she has a branding company. She has several different companies helping women entrepreneurs get seen, get heard, and get paid. That's get seen, get heard, and get paid. And I love Jen, and I've known her for a very long time. If you saw my interview I did, or conversation I had with my wife yesterday on Church with Rev Paul about being married to a Titta, Jennifer Kem. In fact, they were in the same women's leadership class however many years ago in California together, and Jennifer Kem is another Titta. And Jennifer Kem is extremely successful, and she helps women become successful, and it's all about being authentic, being genuine, talking about your scars, talking about your challenges. Jen Kem does it and talks about her fears, and she's got a multi-million-dollar brand. And I follow her because of that. Not because I have a lot of friends that are out there in the world. I follow her because she's authentic. She's vulnerable. And my friend, Cortland Warren, he's one of my teachers and facilitators. Also, when I listen to him speak, besides it's like listening to soft butter melt on a croissant. His voice is like that, so smooth. He admits his challenges. And I even fucked it up by saying admits them. He shares them. That's value to me because he has so much knowledge and so many things about him that I respect and admire. I want to know he's like me. I don't fault him for it and judge him for it. I follow him for it. Kalakanai, one of my great friends from Hawaii that I had my first podcast with, who runs a multi-million-dollar brand in Las Vegas and does classes, and he's invited me on his on calls he does on Clubhouse. And this guy's running a multi-million-dollar business, internet marketing, sales. And if you've ever heard him speak publicly or read him or follow him, man, he shares a lot of deep shit about his life. Deep beliefs, held beliefs he had that weren't serving him. He shares about things even currently as you would look at him and say, he made it. Overnight success. Everyone I know that's overnight success took a really long time. And he shares his battles with depression. And with his business partners even, and just relationship. It's not, I don't judge them for it, like Cortland or Jen. I don't judge them for it. I follow them for it, for exactly those reasons, that they're authentic and they're vulnerable. And I share my mental illness because I don't have a best-selling book and a pit bull rescue and an amazing partnership and relationship with my wife and such great friends all around the world and these great relationships and doing this podcast and Straight on Society channel and doing all these things and figuring out what works. I don't do all that in spite of having general depressive or major depressive disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or anxiety disorders. I get to do all this because they're part of who I am. Because they allow me to see the world the way I see it. Only Paul Hendricks can see it through this filter because of the experiences. And because the experiences of trauma and a lot of that shit, and a lot of times, and I have to deal with going into my shit and suicidal ideations and all that, and I hate it. And yet the benefits from it are I'm a writer, I'm expressive. I lack the filters that to always make myself look good or look positive, because I'm not always looking good. I don't always feel good, and I'm not always positive. And it allows people, and I hope it also attracts trolls and people that talk shit. And when people judge me or talk shit about being open about mental illness, that doesn't mean that has nothing to do with me. It speaks volumes about them. If they don't get it, I'm probably not going to change their mind. I don't care. But I do get a lot of messages from people that are sharing with me about their mental illness. And they're wondering, how do I create the life that I want? And I also have this. And it's a great question. And it's one I think about it often. And before I was even ever diagnosed, I had surrendered to just being different. That my head worked differently. That my perspective was different. That I was drawn to being an experiential, like I mentioned from the test, the value, attitude, and lifestyle assessment. VALS, VALS. Look it up. You can do it. And I was experiential because that's what I wanted. Where the majority of I was surrounded by achievers in my group, or it was just different, and also other experientials. And then moving up and wanting to be giving and experiential, and also an achiever and integrating that I want to. What are my things that I love? Pit bulls, writing books, reading books, talking about cannabis, talking about mental health, talking about the writing, talking about the things that are my values. Hey, I can do that. Put it online, start my own show, and get paid for it. And people will laugh. Oh, you're not going to get paid for it. Yeah. Yeah. This isn't the first time I've done that. I had a television show and stuff. I know how to get sponsorships and do things. And I have great advisors, like the names I mentioned before, because they've done it, and they've done it in a way that's authentic and vulnerable. And you can do that too. And that's what I respond to people. Don't hide that part of yourself. I know I was interviewed for my book, Wake Up, the Enlightenment of an American Misfit and Outlaw. And it was called A Former Outlaw. No, man, the reason I got the book done, the reason that I continue to do the things that I love is because of that outlaw spirit. That's point blank, is because I got a chip on my shoulder. And it can be my enemy, and I can also use it to benefit myself, to give back, and I use it both ways. You know what I mean? When you see me floating down the street, you'll know I've mastered that chip. I don't want to not have it. I don't want to be milquetoast, and I don't want to be mediocre. I like having the dreams of, well, we just look at things in a different way. Like we're looking at ranches now, and we are looking in places that are in other states. And that's not unreal or unrealistic to us to do, because we've moved so many times. We've done it poorly a lot of times as well. That it's not that we necessarily want to move, but our box is big enough to fit in other states, to fit in other areas of the country and the world. And just the fact that our boxes are that big reminds me, shows me the benefits of having this mental illness. The costs. It's a part of my brand. It has cost me money. It's cost me even the very fact that I curse when I talk has cost me money. It's cost me jobs, cost me opportunities. That's okay, because there's other opportunities out there that fit my brand. And for your business, know that everything you're putting out there is branding. Be aware. It shows you. And that's not even if you're looking for a new job and people are going to look at your social media, because they will. but it's more. I tell a story. I used this before, and I don't think a lot of people picked up on it. That my Facebook page is a magazine. Instagram is my magazine. I'm the editor in chief, and also the lead photographer, content creator, and it tells a story about who I am. And it's not just the story that I want you to see, because I'm trained. Just my mind is trained just like a lot of y'all's, where a mental illness is embarrassing, shameful. Having those outbursts and breakdowns that I have. I mean, just a fucking week ago. That's a part of my life, and I can't just share with you the good stuff without all of the stuff. And that's my brand. And there's a cost and a benefit. The benefit is, I do what I want. There's a freedom in that can't be offered. That I can't get anywhere else. And the price in that is there's people that don't want to be attached. There's people that have a lot of judgment on it, that want the world to see them in a certain light, don't want to see that they have weaknesses, or that they have, and it's not even that they don't want to just show the world that they're whole, because I'm whole. An asshole. This is a quote from my friend Linda Lee, because I'm often called an asshole, often at home. Assholeness is part of wholeness, and to be the whole self is to be the light in the dark. And I got a big shadow and I got a big light, and I share all of them with you. And I do it first for me, and I know that it benefits others. I know based on messages. I know based on. I know that there's value. People get value from it, and a lot of people don't have. That's not their gift. Gab is not their gift. Being open isn't their gift, but they are grateful that I can share their experiences, even though it's my experience. But the monster, a lot of people get the monster, that analogy, and that's a gift. There's no cost attached. That's life affirming. You know what I mean? That's life giving. But I know it's my brand, and I know what I write. I know when I take risks to write things. I've even written the same sentiment in two different ways back in Hawaii. One time when I was just kind of testing out a hypothesis on how stated messages, what gets more engagement between anger and soft spoken. Which do you think won? Anger, of course. When I posted the same sentiment in a rough, angry voice, 4 times, 5 times the engagement. It was just interesting to see. And that's really all I want to talk today. It's something that comes up a lot in my life, and I read and we talk a lot about the brand of Bully Ranch, which is empathy in action, and that's kind of the cornerstone of everything that we do. And if I want more empathy, I have to be more empathetic. If I want to see more vulnerability from folks to talk about whatever, mental illness, whatever it is, because I guarantee you that we've all suffered some trauma. And if I want to see more people discuss that because it brings us closer together, it's the bridge, then I have to be more vulnerable and more transparent, if that's what I want to see. And if I can do that and be a voice and advocate for you, even better. So I live my brand. I want to be clear with that. And because my brand is just a reflection. Bully Ranch is just an extension of Diane and I, and our vision and our values. That's it. And so is Strain on Society, and so are my books. That's all they are. There's been this black dot on my forehead on my screen the whole time. I finally handled it after however many minutes, but there's a lot of people in business, and a lot of people that are running their own businesses out there struggle with this idea of branding. They struggle with this idea of how much do I show? How transparent am I? Obviously, if you wanted my advice about it, I would say be authentic and transparent. You don't have to share your whole life. There are things about me that people don't know. There are private things I have with my wife and private things I have with myself. I share with you. I share some of them with my therapist and with my friends. I'm pretty open with. people that are close to me, which the amount of friends that I have that are close to me is gotten much, much smaller as I've gotten older. But I'm open. You know what I mean? I don't want to hide things. And what I found in my relationships, particularly in Texas and in the Austin Facial Hair Club, and if I'm open about being mental health issues or mental illnesses, man, I've gotten closer to so many other members of Austin Facial Hair Club because it gave them permission to be open about them as well, and to have those more intimate relationships. That's value to me. And you guys have to decide what your values are. You have to decide what your brand is. And it may not be like mine. I'm not suggesting that it is. I'm just telling you there's going to be cost and benefits. Sharing your mental illness, it shows a chink in your armor. A chink in your armor. Kink in your armor. Sorry I said that. And some people want, I mean, Donald Trump pretended that he doesn't have any kinks in his armor. That he's all powerful. He's the greatest at everything. And you saw how many millions of people want that because they don't want to. People don't want to take responsibility. People for their own actions. People don't want to learn new things. People want might is right. They don't want to have to evolve into thinking and using their words. And that's my opinion. But the point being, there's how many of those people. So I would imagine that that's a pretty big number of people that aren't going to dig my brand of authenticity and being vulnerable. And that's not true in every case, and I'm making a generalization. But it's also something that I have to accept. I'm not for everyone. Nor should I be. I'm not. And the more I stand in who I am, the more I'm not for everyone. The more at Bully Ranch we have stood in our principles, the more followers we've lost. And yet in those moments, without doing a fundraiser, we always bring money in. Funny how that works, because we also gain loyalty. So there's a cost and a benefit. But we're not here for everyone. I'm not here for everyone. I'm not throwing a piece of fucking meat up against the wall and trying to see what sticks. No, I'm not playing that game. I played it. It's not me. You'll know what I feel because I'll tell you. And whether you agree with me or not, what's it got to do with my opinion? It's my opinion. I don't necessarily care if you agree with my opinion. That's dumb. Who cares? A lot of people want to hear their opinion come out of my mouth, and perhaps that's because I have a platform. Yeah. And I'm not always right. When I give my opinion, because it's my opinion. If it's fact or if facts backing it up, I'll state it in those terms. But I'm an opinionated just like everybody else is. So finding that, being that in the brand, being mental illness, for good or for bad, is part of my brand. Because I talk about it. Because I advocate for it. And if you do the same with your business or you put your business out there, it will be used against you. And it will also, you'll find support like you've never had. I think that's the thing about doing scary shit. When you're scary and sharing things that are vulnerable, you're opening yourself up for judgment. You're opening yourself up for people to throw rocks at you, for people to talk shit. You're also opening yourself up for a lot of the people out there that think a lot of the same things, or that may have some of the same illnesses as you, that have some of those same thoughts as you, that don't feel, they're not in a space of voicing them. Maybe they feel like they don't have one. And you give them that space, so you get a loyal follower in its stead. I'm telling you guys, numbers don't matter. Engagement does. It's a shaky limb out there. I have so many friends that work in these businesses, that like don't want their clients or whatever to know that they smoke marijuana, or even cigarettes back in the day. Like, I'm not afraid to share those things because I do them. Why not? And people are gonna have judgments on them. Yeah, so what? They judge me, and they judge me because I'm bald, because I have red Sally Jesse Raphael glasses on, because I wear cardigans. Who cares? If they don't want my business, then they're not gonna get my business. If they want me, they're gonna get me, all of me. That's branding. And that's the potential costs and benefits of being vulnerable, showing the kinks in your armor, being transparent, being authentic. But it's also how you get supporters like me. And I'm loyal to brands. I mean, I'm loyal to a lot of brands that still match my values, and those are mine, and I'll continue supporting them. But that's my talk. That's my Mental Health Monday. What's it got to do with mental health? Everything, because I get more peace of mind when I don't have to lie, when I don't have to pretend I'm something else, because that's all. Then I always got to worry about something coming back to prove myself otherwise. I don't worry about lying. I don't worry about any of that. I don't worry about what you think. Does that make sense? But I love you anyway. I love that y'all watch. I love that. I hope you get some value out of this. Next week for Strain on Society. I'm probably not gonna do one tomorrow. Although I think I have tomorrow's Tuesday. I think I have a strain review that I never published, so I might put that out. I don't know about Wednesday. Who wants to see me again? Next weekend, I'm excited to have a conversation with a friend of mine that's going to be in town. He's a long distance runner and a cannabis user and advocate, and he was coming to town for the San Antonio Marathon. That's where he's originally from, but it got canceled, but he just decided to come anyway. So we're going to have a conversation I'm looking forward to it, like long distance running, how cannabis helps, supports, and his views on living somewhere where it's somewhat legal. I don't know all the different ramifications for it, but I'm looking forward to that. Still going to have a conversation with my therapist friend, Roy Combs Jr., with all the things going on last week and the week before. We just couldn't sit down and nail it down. And I got a lot of interviews coming up, a lot of conversations, more church coming up on Sunday. I got more reviews coming, more Mental Health Monday, and more Strain on Society. So I appreciate y'all. Hope this benefit to give somebody value. If it does, please love it, like it, share it, leave a comment. Share it, especially. Share it. You don't have to share it with someone because they're going to be like, wow, you think I need to hear about this? But just share it. Share it with your friends. That's how, if you find value in it, if you don't, why would I want you to share it? Your choice. But love it. Engage with me. And this has been Mental Health Monday. I'm Paul E. Hendricks with Strain on Society. Instagram Live. I'm glad this worked out. I really, really am. Word. See y'all later. Peace out.